Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. If you didn't know, it's daylight savings. We had to change the clocks today, and I don't know about you, Saur, but that has really thrown my day through a loop. Everything has been rushed, and we have been hectic trying to get on the same page. So sorry we are late, but the bright side, we got to watch Inter Miami play DC United again today, and I will tell you, not the most fun rewatch we've had so far this season, but rewatched it. We did. We're going to talk about it. We're going to give out some awards. We're going to break everything down. But before that, there are some things going on around Inter Miami that I think are at least worth mentioning and are interesting, at least to me. So I wanted to mention them. But before all of that, my friend, my co-host, how are you doing this afternoon?
You silly man. Clearly did not prepare for daylight savings. You just go to bed an hour early so that when you wake up, you're ready, you're fresh, and you don't lose that hour. That's what I did. I was at a cafe this morning, reading my book, enjoying myself. I don't think rewatching the game was a particular highlight of my day, but still got that done. And now very excited to get on the podcast with you and talk about it. But before that, I know we're a soccer football podcast, but it's a huge day for the Indian national cricket team who just won the World Cup. So, it was a fantastic weekend, fantastic Sunday. And for those of you who celebrate the sports of cricket, India just won. So, good vibes all around.
You know, speaking of cricket, the World Baseball Classic is also going on right now. And Team USA, 2-0. And had
there you go.
Comfortable victory over...
fantastic day for stick sports.
Exactly. There you go. Speaking of stick sports, can't think of a transition there. Okay. Let's just get into it. Inter Miami this week, MLS GAM totals, allocation money totals were published. Inter Miami's out of allocation money. They are out. And so I don't think there's any new players coming in this season and this window. Period. Pretty nervy if you're Inter Miami and you're thinking about trying to make additions in the midterm summer window. Couple thoughts on this. My first reaction was Inter Miami is going to be out an international roster slot come summer because they traded for one to only last until the summer window opens. So they will need to acquire another international roster slot in the summer or move on a player that requires one because they're maxed out at this moment. And they don't have the allocation money to do that. So that's not good. It also, I think, adds credence to my theory that the Berterame move was not planned at the beginning of the offseason because if they had stuck without Berterame, they would have gotten a big injection of allocation money from the sort of 2DP 4U22 rule that it felt like they were pursuing at one point this offseason. Plans change. They can still add the DP, and Berterame, and so this is the team we got. But I do think this means that's it. Nobody else coming in this window, which I think we suspected, but we didn't want to close the door on. I am very comfortable closing the door on it now. I do have some thoughts about what it means for the summer, but for now, I think this is our roster until July.
And it's not that surprising, actually, because we have also had the theory that Inter Miami went full out for this specific window up until the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and they wanted to maximize whatever they could do for the next 6 months before the summer window. So I almost see it as two separate strategies about how we build this roster. Inter Miami clearly wants to win that CONCACAF Champions Cup, and they've gone ahead and exhausted every possible avenue to make this roster ready. So I'm not really surprised that we don't have the GAM. And that's okay for now. I do think the idea is that in the summer, during that transfer window, there will be a lot of outgoings or maneuvers, not just from Inter Miami, but around the MLS as a whole. There's some conversations happening about how this might be the most lucrative summer for MLS teams in terms of bringing talents in, DPs in. And I think there's going to be movements for Inter Miami as well. So we might have to sit tight for the summer transfer window and things will have to be unlocked, whether that's selling players, moving pieces around, acquiring GAM, acquiring international roster slot, a lot of that will happen in the summer. But for now, I think we're locked in to the point that there's no more room to bring in somebody unless maybe we sell another player. Um, and that's about it. And I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that as long as the strategy pays off. If it doesn't pay off, then we can have a conversation about whether it was the right strategy or not. But I think I'm not very surprised with this.
Yeah, I think the fact that they went all out makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the summer, like I want to be clear, they have no room to operate in the summer. They're not getting any room to operate in the summer unless they create it themselves. It's not like
Yeah,
they get additional allocation
exactly.
money, just comes to them. The two ways you can get allocation money are you can trade a player in the league for it, which would mean, whatever piece in this team you think is worth anything, you'd have to trade it for another MLS team, and they'd have to give you allocation money in return, which like I don't feel is particularly likely because this team is not going to trade a player for allocation money if that player's impacting the team because they want to win trophies. And so it'd have to be a player that wasn't impacting the team. And I don't think there's a lot of players on this team that aren't going to have an impact that will be worth anything. So that's tough. The second thing, the second way they can add money is that every season MLS teams can sell players for profit outside the league and convert up to around 3 million of that profit into allocation money. And so Inter Miami, if they sell players abroad, if they're making a profit on those players, they can convert that profit into allocation money. So what does that mean? They can't sell Berterame for 12 million and call that 12 million in allocation money. It has to be for profit, which means maybe David Ajala is sold. I don't know. Like if just Yannick Bright is a guy who wasn't bought for much. David Ruiz is a guy who came out of the academy. No Allen, Ian Frey. These guys were all either brought through for free or bought for a relatively low fee. So maybe you could sell them on for a profit that could bring you more allocation money. There is one name that I think makes the most sense in this regard, and that is a player who's already off the roster but not officially sold. And that's Benjamin Kramaski, who I will just note made his first start in the Serie A today for Parma. I did watch about half an hour of that first half. He was playing right wing back, so clearly they're just trying to find a way to get him on the field, or they needed him to fill in a spot. I don't know what the details are there, but if he goes for 3+ million at some point this summer, whether it's to Parma on that specific deal or to some other team, that would convert into allocation money, which would then allow Inter Miami to make new roster decisions and moves. But they're done, and I think they've been done since Berterame signed.
I think this is a very interesting conversation, maybe something we can do during our midweek show as an analysis closer to the summer transfer window, just understanding what pieces we might have available to move around, what you and I would potentially do. So an interesting conversation here about the roster. The last thing I want to say on my behalf on this could potentially be a locked-in roster for the rest of the season. We're thinking that this might be before the World Cup, after the World Cup. It may not be. It may just be the whole season sort of a situation where we continue with this roster throughout the rest of the season. Maybe add one or two pieces by selling someone like Ian Frey, Noah Allen, Benjamin Kramaski, and bringing in a couple pieces. But we shouldn't be taking it for granted that this roster will change drastically in the summer, right?
No, and I want to be clear. We've mentioned the idea that there's a lot of players that could be like in a position to make moves in the summer. That by no means we're going to see an exodus. And I wouldn't predict an exodus at all.
Mm-mm.
I think there's a lot of players that could be available come summer. That doesn't mean any of them will move. So yeah, I think it's just added pressure on Berterame because it kind of took away the rest of your flexibility, and also added pressure to win this CONCACAF Champions Cup, which I admire and appreciate they're going all in. That's fantastic, and it's what you want as a fan, but also adds to the pressure of making sure you actually get the job done. So, pros and cons, and that's what listen, that's probably what you want if you're a professional at the highest level in the country doing your thing. So.
But I'd rather we go all out and try for it, right, than sit on options. And I think the fact that we've gone in shows there's ambition in the ownership, there's ambition in this team, and I'm happy with that. Now, whatever the result of that is, we'll see. But they tried.
Yeah, I don't know if it's what I would do necessarily, but I absolutely admire and appreciate, and I'm not going to be mad that they've gone this way. And even if it doesn't work, I'm not going to blame them for having done this decision. Even if we could have a different opinion, I think it does make sense. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention, late last week, I think Thursday, the Leagues Cup was announced with dates and opponents. So Inter Miami got their schedule for the first phase one of the Leagues Cup. It's going to be in early August 5th, 8th, and 12th are Inter Miami's 3 games. They're all going to be at Miami Freedom Park. We got our opponents is Atletico San Luis, which should be a relatively easy game. Game 2, Monterrey, which I think is going to be one of the most exciting games of the Leagues Cup phase 1. And then Club Leon is that third game. Same rules and format for the most part as last season, so no major changes. But yeah, Inter Miami on the schedule, 3 new games, including one big one against Monterrey.
Yeah, I'll have to look into Monterrey to see if they're less scary or more scary compared to the last time when we played them.
Well,
Something tells me
we stole their
probably
striker,
haven't changed.
right?
Yeah, we stole their striker. So that, I think, is going to be an exciting matchup. I like the fact that they've gone with the same format as last season, which for me was very exciting. It doesn't necessarily mean you're competing with the teams that you're playing against. You're actually competing against other MLS teams. So maybe having Monterrey as an opponent doesn't necessarily work in Inter Miami's favor. But I think it's going to be fun. And I'm glad that we won't have to wait too long before Inter Miami has a tough opponent from Liga MX in the Leagues Cup. I'm excited for that. That should be very fun.
Just quickly before we move into this game, Bangi says, so the CONCACAF Champions Cup final will be played right before the World Cup. The final is scheduled for May 30th. That will be the last game before everyone leaves for the World Cup. So, yeah, it would be. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention was Kramaski getting his debut or his starting debut in Serie A. So, I'm ready to get into it if you are.
I was trying to delay it as much as possible, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's run through it quickly. Inter Miami gets up early, 1-0 in the 17th minute. Herman Berterame sees Lucas Bartlett, DC United center back, being a little careless and lackadaisical on the ball. He goes to press him, and he wins the ball way high up the field. Picks out a really nice pass to Telasco Segovia, and Segovia pushes it across, bypasses Messi, which I didn't really think much about while watching it the first time, but I thought was interesting on the rewatch, and gets it to Rodrigo de Paul, takes one touch, sets himself up, and then fires a really nice shot into the wide corner. Nothing Sean Johnson could have done about that. Inter Miami up 1-0 early, and it's all guns blazing. And I think any thought that Inter Miami was going to have trouble in this game or Sean Johnson was going to have one of those big-time games went out the way very early. And then 10 minutes later, I thought we were going to run away with this when Inter Miami goes up 2-0. Mateo Silvetti takes on his defender 1v1, step to the right, and then a beautiful through ball into Messi, perfectly weighted. Messi just takes one touch, chip shot over Sean Johnson, and it's 2-0, 27th minute. And I texted you. In the pregame show, I said 5-0 Inter Miami, and then I said that's probably too ambitious. Let's revise it to 4-0. I texted you and I said, should have kept it at 5-0 because I thought Inter Miami was going to run away with this game. One last moment I want to mention the first half. Facundo Moura has a turnover in the 37th minute, and it kind of lands at the feet of Pirani right at the edge of the box. He takes a step or two into the box to set himself up. He is wide open. It is going to take a magnificent save by Dane St. Clair to prevent this from being a goal. I mean, it is a goal. And then out of nowhere, from the backside, just a little touch of the ball by Yannick Bright. And Pirani goes flying without the ball, thinking he was about to score. He doesn't even know what happened. It's one of the most impressive in the box tackle or takeaways I've seen in quite some time. And so Inter Miami, 2-0 into the half. What'd you think?
Let me start with that last moment because, of course, you ended on it. So you can only score when the ball is at your feet. And when you take the ball away from the opponent, they can't really do anything with it. Yannick Bright literally didn't parry it away, didn't poke it away. He took the ball away. while Pirani was going to strike it. That was so perfectly timed. It was comical almost to a T. Really enjoyed it, but that just described Yannick Bright's performance in one flash moment. It was fantastic. I think overall, there were three notes that I had from this game. One, I hashed out yesterday during our raw reaction. Maybe I can mention it again. This was the closest this team has looked to a 4-3-3 all season and also under Javier Mascherano. The structure that we played in the first half up until the substitutions were made involved Noah Allen tucking in as a conservative left back, staying in the back line. When we were on the ball, it almost looked like a three-man back line. Facundo Mora was given the responsibility of stretching the field out. Lionel Messi on paper was a right winger, tucked in, was playing centrally, and Telasco Segovia was also playing centrally with Silvetti keeping the width out on the left-hand side. I thought that was the best way and the best roles that each player was individually given. And this, for me, needs to be the blueprint going forward. I don't know if the performance level as such would put people with too much confidence, but overall, I thought this was exactly how I would use these players. And going forward, this is how I would play them. The goals for me, the two goals that we had, both very well constructed. I was very surprised in the first watch why Inter Miami's XG was that low, and then I watched the goal that both the goals that were scored. Rodrigo de Paul, fantastic finish. Not easy by any means. I think if any other player tries that, it either gets saved because the angle is too easy for the goalkeeper or it hits the opposition player. Fantastically well constructed. Should give a shout out to Berterame and then Segovia for not just popping the ball into Messi, but finding Rodrigo de Paul, who was free. And then the second goal, again, really good ball by Silvetti and Messi with a magical finish. Not easy by any means. And then the rest of it for me was just very complacent. I thought we should have done more of what we did with the goals, just constantly go at this EC team who were there to be taken. We could have easily scored 5 goals in this, as you said. And I predicted 2-1, and actually I was surprised that it stayed to 2-1. Inter Miami should have done a lot better. Lackluster, complacent. 2 words that come to mind. Lackadaisical, add a third to that, but they all mean the same. We did not go for the throat. We did not finish the game off when we should have. And honestly, the ending could have been a lot more comfortable if we had done that. That's all I have. Want to go to awards?
No, let's get to the second half, which we haven't gotten to yet, which was not quite as fun. It felt to me like a slow decline in momentum. I thought they came out and were fine for the first 10, 12 minutes of the second half. But eventually the tide does start to turn. Inter Miami doesn't get that sort of put away goal. In fact, they don't even get a real clear cut opportunity. It's kind of like you said, it didn't feel like they were really going through going for the throat. And so as the minutes tick away, DC United kind of realize, okay, well, if we can get one, we're in this. And they start creating a little momentum. They get a little bit better control in the midfield. I think Inter Miami is trying to hit the killer play, and it never really comes off. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But ultimately, DC United gets the goal back that they need to make this a game. 75th minute. Telasco Segovia, a little bit careless with a turnover in the midfield off of a throw-in. So Noah Allen high up the field to throw the ball in to Segovia, and Segovia immediately turns it over. So everyone's kind of out of position. It's a recovery, emergency defense situation, not handled particularly well. It's a nice pass and spot by Peglo into Jackson Hopkins on the right, who fires at goal. Dane Sinclair makes the save, and he had to. I mean, it would have been a goal, but only able to get half a hand on it, and it kind of rebounds into the path of Tyberibo, who's able to tap it in. Just quickly, I thought, obviously Segovia for kind of a careless turnover in a bad spot, not what you want to see. A little bit of blame for Noah Allen for not working a little harder to get back into position on Jackson Hopkins, and then maybe even less blame for Facundo Mora for not staying with his man Tyberibo on the back post and allowing Tyberibo to have kind of an easy tap in. So those are my 3 thoughts. But also, it starts when you turn the ball over and everyone's out of position, and then the other team makes sort of the right play. It was a nice play by Peglo. And then the only other minute in the second half I wanted to talk about was the 92nd minute. Messi puts Berterame through twice. First one is a shot on goal. The second one is a through ball to this sort of inside the penalty spot for Rodrigo de Paul, and all he has to do is tap it in, and he skies at 10 yards over the net, which also would have been the put away goal. But either way, Inter Miami 2-1 victory on the road in Baltimore against DC United. You got what you came for, and like it was pretty fine.
I think pretty fine is the right way to describe this game. The way I looked at the second half on rewatch was it felt like Inter Miami fell into a false sense of security about DC not having anything to offer. And we were just pinging the ball around in our own half, doing our thing, controlling the tempo, controlling the pace. And then one bad moment from Telasco Segovia changes the momentum, as you said, but also changes the tempo, which is what I want to talk about the second half. I think DC United upped the tempo in that second half. To their credit, as soon as they got that goal, they started pushing a lot more. And Inter Miami almost felt like in trying to control the game, control the tempo, just was not able to get out of the second or the third gear. And it took them time to start matching up to what DC was trying to do. I looked at the offensive stats. DC United had more shots. DC United had more penetrations into the final third. They had more touches in the opposition box than Inter Miami did. It just wasn't a particularly clinical performance when it comes to offense, which is rare for an Inter Miami team that almost always dominates offensively. Possession stats were high for Inter Miami, but we didn't do much with the ball. So for me, the most glaring part about this game was our touches in the opposition box were less than DC. Our final third penetration was less than DC. And on another day, they could have come away with the draw. I don't think we were ever in danger of losing this game as such, but yeah, I think we let it slip away from us by not going for the throat, and that's the story of this game for me.
Here's the thing. If we weren't playing again until next week in Charlotte, this game would be fine. It would be great.
Absolutely.
The only thing we left on the table was a goal early in the second half to make it 3-0, and then you get to take Messi and De Paul off 30 minutes early and give them a little bit more rest so they're ready for Wednesday. Not that they won't be ready, but just like that's all that was at stake in that second half, in my opinion, because I agree with you. I didn't think DC was particularly close to tying the game and certainly not winning the game, but just a little bit of meat, I think, left on the table. Quickly, DC United. I don't know. They feel like they're lacking talent in the midfield and the front three and the back four. So I think here's what I'll say: if they went out and signed a really nice DP number 10, I think that would change their team a lot. I don't think that's going to happen, so I guess I'm not really worried about it. But
I don't see them as playoff contenders by any means. And Ty Baribo always finds a way to score against us somehow, so maybe that's what it was. On another day, Inter Miami could have easily won this by more goals. I thought we made DC look good. I think that's the right way to put it.
Yeah. Okay, I have a bunch of things about this game that I think are worth touching on, if not huge conversation points. We're going to talk a lot about things we're nervous about or things that didn't go right in this game, and we've already mentioned it. It did feel like kind of a sleepy Saturday and lackadaisical, whatever you want to describe it as. I have no concerns about it, though. And when we talk about Berterame or we talk about Silvetti or Segovia or whoever not having maybe like the best game, Mura, No Allen, whoever, it's not that I'm worried. I want to be clear about that. It's just on this day, there was half a percentage off on maybe what you'd expect from these players. But the fact that I think we have some criticisms to hand out, or not criticisms to hand out, but just, comments to say about everything doesn't mean, at least for me, that I'm worried at all. I think this team is really good. I've liked the progress. I think the defense is taking steps in the right direction. And listen, 3 goals to 2 goals to 1 goal. That means next game, clean sheet, baby. I think generally I feel pretty good about going on the road and getting 3 points at DC United. And so my concerns are mini concerns, or my criticisms are mini criticisms.
That's what I was trying to get at yesterday during the Raw reaction as well. I think there's enough progress to be okay and happy with this game. I think on any other day, we would have been fine with this. We would have gone away with a 2-1 victory away from home and taken the 3 points, and that's it. I think the only semblance of worry or concern, and let's be honest, we're not concerned, but the only semblance of worry or concern would be that Inter Miami is playing Nashville on Wednesday. That I think adds a certain dimension to how we viewed this game because we almost feel that this was the training or the test to see if this team is ready. And they didn't do enough to convince us that they're ready to go up against the likes of Nashville. Now, on Wednesday, Inter Miami might show up against Nashville and be ready, look sharp, have that energy, completely dust off the cobwebs and look good. That could 100% be on the cards. And I would expect that to happen. But I think we were hoping as fans to see glimpses of sharpness, that edge in this game, and it didn't come through entirely. And that's probably why we have that tiny doubt in our mind that Wednesday may have come too soon. But other than that, I thought the midfield, other than the wayward passes that we saw a few times from mostly all players, which can be completely taken out of the game as we progress into the season, the structure looked good. We didn't get dominated by a man in the middle. I think the patterns of play up front started to look a lot better. Berterame was at least making the run in the right direction where the ball may not have found him, but at least the ball and the player were running in the same direction rather than completely off from each other. And for me, the biggest positive was the defense, which looked not complete, not fully ready, but better than what we've seen over the last two games. And we just need to turn up against Nashville, as BD says in the chat.
The sky's not falling. There's just a couple puddles to not step in.
Exactly.
With that said, the sky is falling and everything was terrible. Here's actually the big thing that I wanted to say that I think is the biggest excuse. The first two games Inter Miami played, very high intensity games in great atmospheres against opponents that mattered, and it felt like this maybe is a situation for a drop off in intensity. And I felt we definitely saw that. A sleepy Saturday against an opponent to not get that excited about. The other thing is they left South Florida on, I think, Wednesday morning to do the White House trip and then stayed in the area for this game. So they've been away from home. They're usually only away from home for one night. It was, 3 or 4 nights. So, I think all of these things contribute to playing just half a percentage less clinically than you are used to. And I think that was the difference between a 2-1 road victory, which is good, and like a 4-0 victory, which would have been a lot of fun, but also we'll have plenty of those over the course of the season.
Add to that list that we may actually have one eye on Nashville and one eye in DC, which is not great because you're not fully concentrated in the game in hand. And that is very much plausible. We've bigged up CONCACAF Champions Cup as this is the trophy that we need this season. So maybe the players are already thinking about Wednesday, especially when you're 2-0 up and you're like, okay, DC's not offering anything. You start to maybe take a foot off the gas, be like, okay, we can maybe coast through this and not worry too much about injuries or fatiguing ourselves too much. So maybe that was another thing.
And to that point, I think the intensity will be back on Wednesday night. I'm not worried about that seeping into the next.
It has to be.
Yeah, it will. It will. Okay, 4-3-3. It was a 4-3-3. If you want to call Messi a false nine, whatever. It's a 3-man midfield and a 4-man back line. However you want to shape it up front is fine. Distinction without a difference, in my opinion. And it looks better, and I think it's the reason this team looks so good in the first half. And I also think it was the reason they looked bad in the last 20 minutes, because what happens in the 71st minute, Tadeo Allende comes on, Mateo Silvetti comes off, and that's not a personnel change that bothers me. I think it makes a lot of sense in the situation. But what also changed is Inter Miami goes from this 3-man midfield where they have a 2-layered midfield to a flat 4-man midfield, and you no longer have the layers, and it gets rid of some of the passing opportunities to help get out of your own final third. Inter Miami did not handle it particularly well. Tried a couple long balls, very few of them came off, and that's what I thought helped DC United put so much pressure on Inter Miami over the last 20 minutes. So, first 70 minutes, bravo, Javier Mascherano. I think this is what we've wanted to see since the MLS Cup final. And we saw glimpses of it against LAFC and who else, but we were nervous we weren't going to get this at all, and here we are 3 games in, and we've got it. So, like, that's great. It was a talking point all preseason. It was a talking point when they were shaping the roster. I was getting nervous, and first game we started a 4-4-2 and it doesn't look good. Here we are, game 3 in a 4-3-3, and I think that structure is actually what won us this game. So, congratulations, Javier Mascherano. Forever more, keep this.
I hope so. It's come much sooner than I would have expected. I thought Javier Mascherano might eventually revert to a 4-3-3, or at least I hoped, but I didn't think it would come in time. I thought we were going to play the whole CONCACAF Champions Cup with that 4-4-2 structure, and maybe when there's a drop in performances, Javier Mascherano shifts to a 4-3-3. No, he did it very quickly. And honestly, the biggest surprise was that he played it the way I would actually have played it with this personnel. If you had Sergio Reguilon on the left-hand side, maybe it would have looked slightly different. Maybe you put Silvetti on the right-hand side instead of the left then, and allow Sergio Reguilon to be the one who holds the width. But no, with this personnel, he played it exactly how it's supposed to be. Messi is always going to tuck in on the right-hand side, which means that you're going to need your fullback on that side to be the one creating the width. And that's what Javier Mascherano instructed Facundo Moura to do. Noah Allen, a lot more defensively conservative, stayed with the back line, did not actually venture out that much forward. Segovia constantly in the middle, offering himself as that extra body that Yannick Bright and Rodrigo de Paul could just play off of. It was almost like there's this post in the middle that they're bouncing the ball off, and that just adds that element of, okay, now we can play around the opposition midfield rather than having to run through them. And with the technique that these players have, with the passing ability, the 1-2s that they play between themselves, among themselves, I thought that was the best that this midfield has looked over the last 3 games. And honestly, this midfield has looked very good, even in a flat 4-man formation. So kudos to Javier Mascherano for figuring it out, putting on the personnel in the way that suits their play style and giving them roles that they're comfortable with. And for large parts of this game, until we shifted a little bit, Inter Miami looked on top in that formation. And I hope Javier Mascherano sees that. And as you said, forevermore, hopefully.
Yeah, we should just describe this, because sometimes you and we're chatting all the time about it, and we talk to each other about it, or we just have a mind meld so we know exactly what we're talking about. But it is worth just describing real quick. By playing this 4-3-3 and having Messi as your right winger that likes to drift centrally, you can have Facundo Moura play as that true fullback or wing back, trying to get up and down the field, play both ways. But putting Silvetti on the left instead of the right allows you to get an option out there in attack that helps the outlet and helps Messi, because listen, Messi's vision drifts that direction. So having an outlet out there consistently is very beneficial to him. It also takes off a lot of the pressure for Noah Allen, because in this game does not have the same type of responsibility getting forward and covering that, the whole sideline, can play much more conservative. And so you have this offset right fullback getting higher up the pitch to fill the gaps, and then your left fullback gets to be more of a defensive player. And then in your midfield, that allows Segovia to not have the same type of, he doesn't have to cover for Noah Allen on the left, so he doesn't have to play the same defensive role towards the left side of the field. He can be more central, which allows him to get into the spaces where he can impact the game more on a regular basis. It's excellent. It's what this team should be. You mentioned it, when Sergio Reguilon comes in, maybe that flips, or maybe we'll rework it. But I think with the personnel that we had last night or yesterday afternoon, I think this was absolutely the right decision.
I do want to say one thing in this formation. I don't think the players executed it to perfection. There's still chunks there. I didn't think we brought Silvetti into the game as much as we should have, perhaps. Again, we lost the ball in certain places. So there's more to come from this formation. I think it can look a lot better than it did against DC. A lot more sharp, a lot more quick, a lot more penetrative into the final third. So room for improvement, absolutely, but that has to do more with the players on the pitch rather than Javier Mascherano. And that's probably the first time I've ever said that since Javier Mascherano's become the coach. So overall, very excited to see this formation being used more. If we see it against Nashville, I think it's here to stay. But if we revert to a 4-4-2, which we might do away from home against Nashville on Wednesday, we'll just have to see whether Javier Mascherano trusts himself to completely what's the word? Give
Commit.
himself up to this formation, commit to this formation.
Yeah, because listen, we saw second half, he goes back to his style, which is defensive, 4-4-2, block up, kill the game. And I thought they got worse in it, in my opinion. The other thing about this, like moving forward, talking about personnel in and out, listen, however you want to line up the front three, whether it's Silvetti, Allende, Suarez, Bertarame, Messi, however you want it to look, false nine Messi or right wing Messi, doesn't matter to me. What I really care about is that you have 2 8s and a number 6, which is what you have the personnel for, whether it's Yannick Bright as the 6, Segovia and Rodrigo de Paul as the 8s, whether it's Rodrigo de Paul, Yannick Bright as the 8s, and Ayala as the 6, or vice versa. Like whatever combination you have, you can still play 2 8s and a 6, and it will look much better, in my opinion, than this sort of 4 flat midfield.
And to your point about Javier Mascherano reverting to type with the 4-4-2, I think there's opportunity for him to show the 4-3-3 up more than just turning to the 4-4-2 when he wants to go defensive. If you want to be more defensive in the 4-3-3 shape, just flip it over, have 2 6s in Najala and Yannick Bright, and Rodrigo de Paul as the 8. And I think that gives you a lot more stability without losing out on some of the attacking prowess that you have. So I hope he tries to experiment a bit more within this formation, because there's a lot to it that he can do. And that he has the players available to make those changes within the 4-3-3 rather than always revert to type and use the 4-4-2 when he wants to go defensive, let's say.
You know, I actually have a couple other things to talk about for this game. So it's crazy how the sort of most boring games end up giving you the most to talk about. 71st minute, Allende comes in, and this is a defensive change. It's not a criticism. It's just a puddle to avoid. It's actually just a philosophical question. I think it's interesting. It's a defensive substitution. Allende comes in, and he allows you to play a little bit more conservative with the midfield and with your defense, because he gives you an option to just go long to. But also, more importantly, he goes back to a 4-4-2, which allows you to sit in that 4 flat midfield block, and you're just more structurally organized defensively if you can keep it and not have bad turnovers in areas where everyone's out of position. And that's classic Javier Mascherano. He was a center back, defensive midfielder, and this is what we saw him in game 1 last year. This is like what he wanted to implement. And it looked worse than the first 70 minutes, in my opinion. And I think back to the first 2 games of the season, we make very aggressive offensive substitutions at halftime. And it works for Inter Miami. They look much better. Even against LAFC, I know that they go from 1-0 to 3-0, but they were much better in the second half. And then certainly against Orlando City, they just steamrolled them. Is there something to be said that every substitution or every philosophical change should just be offensive for this specific team with these specific players, and that it's better to go for a goal to kill the game than it is to just try and protect a lead? I will remind you, it was 2-0 at that point. The game was flipping, the momentum was flipping, so I'm not saying it wasn't, like it was. But is there something to be said that the best decision for this team is to always go for the kill? I think that's worthy of thinking about, even if, like philosophically, even if I don't have any problem with what happened yesterday.
I'm slightly disappointed in you because I set you up perfectly by saying that we could flip the 4-3-3 on its head and still have that defensive stability, and you could have used it as the perfect segue into this conversation, and yet you did not. So maybe try again next time. I like the point that you make. I think it's very interesting. The only caveat I would add is I'm not sure if in Javier Mascherano's head, changing to the 4-4-2 and adding Allende on is a defensive substitution. Probably is. You're probably right, given that he was a midfielder, defensive midfielder, and a centre-back himself. I think a 4-4-2 makes him a lot more relaxed. But 100%, my school of football is always go for the kill, man. If you're the superior team who has the quality, who can kill off games with goals, your offensive unit is your USP, that's always the course of action that you should take, especially when you're 2-0 up. Put on Allende, that's fine, but don't change the structure. You don't need to change the structure. Just go for the kill, get that extra goal. And if you are sacrificing a little bit of defensive structure by adding an offensive piece, I think you're more likely to score a goal than to defend a goal. This Inter Miami team is not built on defending. They cannot sit back, absorb pressure. Now, you made an excellent point. Should this always be the case? No. I think there are important moments during the game where you have to be slightly defensive. For instance, if you're in the 89th minute and you're being barraged by an equally good opposition and you do want to have an extra body in the box, you have to make that and you have to play according to the game state. But I think
Last
your
night,
type should be
yesterday afternoon maybe was the perfect example, because we're talking about this 71st minute decision. He puts on Gonzalo Lujan, puts on a center back for a midfielder to go even more defensive in the 88th minute, and that's not part of this conversation. So it's obviously it is not just every single time go all out offense, but
exactly.
I do think if you're talking about 20, 25 minutes left in the game, like maybe the instinct should be, let's go kill this game, as opposed to let's see this game out. And the real reason that I am thinking it got worse yesterday is because by taking out a layered midfield for a flat midfield, they actually lost the passing lanes that would have helped them play through DC United and create offense going the other way. So
especially when they were a lot more expansive.
Right. So I think
DC,
they got worse by doing this, and it actually allowed DC to create some momentum and put some pressure on Inter Miami in a way that so it's just, it's fine. Like they got the result, and listen, that's the most important thing. So I'm not crucifying Javier Mascherano. I just think with this team, and especially with the defense right now, maybe they will turn into a lockdown unit. They certainly have the personnel. But I think maybe the instinct for this Inter Miami team should be to always kill the game as opposed to see it out.
I love that tagline.
The last thing I wanted to mention, because I just noticed it for the first time yesterday. This team is not nearly as good in transition as they have been in years past. And this has been the bread and butter for Inter Miami when they really blow teams out. They win the ball in the midfield. They get the ball to Messi or Suarez really quickly, and they put in the perfect pass to Allende or Campana or whoever it's been over the last couple of years, or each other, Jordi Alba, whoever it is. And they just are so absolutely clinical going forward, especially when the opposition's defense is disorganized, that if you can get a midfield turnover and then hit quickly, the pure class and quality of Busquets and Alba and Messi and Suarez, it's just so undeniable that they can pick the perfect play, perfect decision, and weight the ball perfectly. You create fantastic opportunities for yourself. It did feel to me yesterday like Inter Miami in the second half tried to either professionally kill the game in their own half or hit the hero balls. And I don't think they have the players for the hero balls anymore, because, again, I know Messi's still there. We've seen, Rodrigo de Paul picked a nice pass for Tadeo Allende, but it's not Busquets, Alba, and Suarez. And so I think as Inter Miami fans, we have to just recognize they are not going to be as good and as clinical and as prolific on those sort of quick turnover transition opportunities as they have been in the past. It doesn't mean they need to go out and buy another player to fix it. It's just not going to be as effective. And so maybe the game plan shouldn't be, let's try and hit one of those and kill the game off. It should be, let's continue trying to build through our normal offense, which is just an adjustment. It's an early season recognition, but I just don't think they have the same players as they had last year to be able to do that specific part of the game that has been so good for them over the last couple of years.
And that's just because the technical flow is slightly lower now. You don't have Sergio Busquets and Alba to make those passes. I think they used to put the hero balls in as well, a lot more probably than we would see it. But their ability to find that hero ball 90% of the times is unmatched.
And it's the decision making, knowing exactly when to try it.
Exactly.
So yes, it's the quality to actually pull it off, but it's also, is this the perfect time to actually make either the run in Alba's case or the pass in Busquets' case? It's just, even if Rodrigo de Paul is 85% of that, it's still like from super elite to just pretty good.
One dimension I do think that maybe lacks, and this adds to your conversation. This team is missing the quick switches that Alba could find and Sergio Busquets could find in the blink of an eye. And now I feel like we take a little bit too much time on the ball and then either go backwards or then try to find that through ball instead of switching the play quickly on the other side. And that goes back to my point of how we didn't find Silvetti a lot in this game on that left-hand side. A couple of times Messi tried that ball. It didn't come through. It was either underhit or overhit, which was interesting because he's probably the only player who can find that every single time. But maybe it's something to be said about not having those switches. So now you should alter the way that you make the play a little bit more maneuverable and quick. So yeah, just another point that I thought yesterday we looked slow on. The switches didn't come off.
And again, that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a player to fix it. It just means you have to play differently. And
Yeah.
I think the benefit you get is you get way more athletic and dynamic through the midfield. Listen, before last summer, nobody was dribbling through the midfield like Rodrigo de Paul. So you have added dimensions, but that is one thing that we can't rely on in the same way. Okay, those are my thoughts. Anything else before we get to awards?
All right, this conversation has gone on longer than I thought it would, so I think I'm ready for awards.
Me too. Okay, for those that don't know, we give out 6 awards after every game: a Heron of the Match, Heron that flew north, and 2 individual awards each. You went first last time, so I'm going to go first this time. Heron of the Match, Yannick Bright. No, I'm sorry. No, Rodrigo de Paul.
Thank God.
Sorry. Rodrigo de Paul. Killer ball shot on the opening goal. Like, that is such a fantastic play. And I would have mentioned it earlier if I didn't know I was going to give this award. To know you have the time to take the touch to set yourself up is like, it's just high level, cerebral thinking. He takes the touch because he knows he can, and then he sets himself up for the perfect shot, and he nails it. Obviously, at the end, 92nd minute, he wished he could have put the game away. But if he only gets the put away goal in the MLS Cup final and not against DC United, I think I can live with that. And then, as I just mentioned, his ability to just completely transform this midfield with his ability to drive through. He had picked out a really nice pass to Allende at one point in the second half that it led to that moment where Kunamura tries to draw a foul in the box. But it was, I think, the best transition moment we had in the entire second half. Defensively, I think he's really impressed me this year. That energy level that we expected, that he got the nickname El Motorcito for, we didn't see it last year. We rarely saw it, and it feels like it is there consistently this season. And I thought he had another fantastic game. This midfield has been awesome. Rodrigo de Paul, man of the match, Heron of the match.
RDP's biggest blip this season for 2026 is going to be the Heron that flew north award that you gave to him last episode. That's going to be his biggest blip. He's been brilliant since the start of this season. He's had a couple of moments that have cost us, which is, you need to raise your hand up for that. But overall, he has been fantastic. It almost feels like he's on a bike while everyone around him is walking. He's running the show in the middle in a way that's different from what we've seen in the past from our midfielders like Sergio Busquets. It's sharp, it's athletic. He gets to the ball. Even in the 90th minute, he's running as though the game has just started. His ability to find that through ball looks very, very good. And I think Inter Miami is going to grow into this style of play where we just cut teams open in the middle a lot more than actually switching the ball or finding the ball over the top, because Rodrigo de Paul prefers that. Him running with the ball is a sight to behold, and I'm really enjoying his performances. I think that's a huge shout also because he gets that goal. As I said, what a fantastically taken goal. There's one other player on the pitch who can find that inch perfect, and that's Messi, and the other's Rodrigo de Paul. And honestly, it was a much harder goal than you give him credit for, or we give him credit for. So, yeah.
Fantastic goal.
Well done.
We'll continue this conversation as we move further into awards. So that's all I'll say on Rodrigo de Paul. He's been great this season so far, and I think, aside from the two big mistakes, he's been great. I don't think there's any player that has changed my opinion of him more so far this season than Rodrigo de Paul. He's been fantastic, and if he plays like this, he'll be the best number 8 in the league. And I will finish that thought in a few minutes. Saur, who's the heron that flew north? And remind us what that is.
So heron that flew north. Florida herons don't fly north. If you see a Florida heron flying north, they're doing the wrong thing. And the player who did the wrong thing this game, for me, was Facundo Mora. I thought he had glimpses where he looked good, but majority of the game I was very disappointed with his offensive play, which is what he was relied on the right-hand side for. He was taking up positions on the right-hand side close to the halfway line, and I think the intent was for him to be the overlapping player once Messi tucks in, to put the balls in for the likes of Berterame to head into. We didn't see much crossing for him. I think 90% of his passes were backwards, but also he lost the ball a lot in crucial moments. There was a moment I think you mentioned in the 37th minute where he loses the ball, which leads to the Yannick Bright moment. So I thought he had a fairly average performance. There were a couple of other players I could have picked, but for me, he stood out the most in terms of not living up to his role as he should have. And listen, I'm not going to be judging Moura as a player right now. I think he needs more time to embed into this team. But if Javier Mascherano wants his right back to do the role of being that runner down the channel, Ian Frey is more suited to that role, in my opinion.
I want to be fair. Last week, I said something about Noah Allen, and I wanted to say the same thing about Facundo Mora. What they asked Noah Allen to do in the first half last week is to be both the offense up the left side and the defense down the left side, and it is very hard to do. And the same is true for what they asked of Facundo Mora in this game. They asked him to be the high and wide winger type player going forward because Messi's drifting in and no one's filling that space. They're also asking him to play defensively, and that takes a lot of running back and forth. And if you are not really smart about your decisions to go forward and make those runs, you can exhaust yourself very quickly. And the other team, once they start picking up how and when you're making those decisions, they can play off of that, and it becomes like it is very difficult. I want to be clear. And exactly what I said about Noah Allen, it's very hard, but this is what you get paid to do. You're a professional. So same line of thinking. He got turnover happy. I think that's what it is, really. They trying to push the ball through him, and he turned the ball over sometimes. If this is his most turnover happy game of the season, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Does not cost Inter Miami the win. Obviously, there's one moment where Yannick Bright really saves him, which we just mentioned, but not a particularly great game for Facundo Mora. I'd agree with that, but I'm also fine if he starts on Wednesday night. I'm not at the point where I think Facundo Mora has to get benched for his play. I think this, it was a blip, and it was kind of a lazy Saturday, and maybe he had the worst game on a lazy Saturday, but Inter Miami still won, and that's okay.
It's interesting because for me, I feel like Ian Frey is being crucified for one poor performance where he was taken at the half against LAFC, where every single player was quite poor, and he shouldn't have lost his starting spot for that. But we're here, and yes, maybe Facundo Mora does well against Nashville, but I'd rather have Ian Frey in that crunch game against Nashville on Wednesday than Facundo Mora at this point.
That's fine. I don't begrudge anyone that opinion. I guess my point is, I don't think we're at the point where it's obvious you have to pick one or the other. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen Ian Frey since that first half of the first game, but anyways. Okay. Anything else on Mutter? Can we go forward?
Your first award.
Okay, I'm giving the Lucy Van Pelt Award.
Do you want to tell me who that is so that I can at least take a stab at this?
If I tell you who it is, it's going to give the award away. So
I don't know who Lucy Van Pelt is.
I will just tell you, this is a very old school cartoon character.
Oh. I don't know who Lucy Van Pelt is, and I watched my fair share of cartoons. So
Older than that. Whatever you're thinking, older.
is it like Tom and Jerry older?
That time frame, maybe even earlier.
Oh, Charlie Brown. Peanuts. I never actually watched Peanuts. That's the thing. This award goes to Berterame.
This award goes to Yannick Bright. The thing
Oh.
about Lucy Van Pelt is this very famous Charlie Brown scene where she holds the football down so he can kick a field goal. And at the last second, she pulls the football away and he goes to kick it and goes flying. And then she promises, I won't do it again. I won't do it again. I won't do it again. He finally trusts her. And she does it again. Pulls the football at the last second. Charlie Brown goes flying because he kicks it so hard and he misses. And he just falls on his back. Charlie Brown is not just the DC United defender that got the ball just completely swiped from him and goes flying. Pirani. But basically every team that's tried to go up against Yannick Bright this season, defensively, he's a stalwart. And the real reason I was kind of iffy between Rodrigo de Paul or Yannick Bright for my hand of the match is because I wanted to give Yannick Bright this particular award, which was where that confusion came from at the beginning. That ball was right there for a goal. And it is legitimately a goal-saving little teeny tiny touch. And by the way, he takes that ball, they go the other direction, and Messi ends up with a shot that ends up a foot wide, but a goal-scoring opportunity. They put a shot on, not on target, but a threatened goal. Fantastic player, deserving of sort of hair-in-the-match conversation. And then to my point about Rodrigo de Paul, I think if he lives up to his talent, he'll be the best number 8 in the league. I think if he lives up to his talent, Yannick Bright's going to be the best number 6 in the league. This fan base is behind on where Yannick Bright is, and they've been that way since he was drafted. But this is a real talent. He is a fantastic player. By the end of this season, I think there's a very real chance that DePaul and Yannick Bright are seen as the two best, or the single best midfield partnership in the league. Yannick Bright, the Lucy Van Pelt Award.
For our newer viewers, we don't know who the award is being given to, so we have to guess on the spot, as you can tell. And I used the word comical at the start of this podcast when we were describing that moment, so it almost felt like I should have got this award in the first instant, but clearly my brain's not switched on enough. It's interesting because I also had an award for him, which was also the name of a person / character.
What'd you have?
I'm not going to tell you because I might be able to use that award again. But I think you described it perfectly. And you don't even need to talk about that moment to say how good Yannick Bright was. I think that was just an encapsulation of his performance in one frame. 30 seconds into the game, he just steals the ball and we're off to the races with Yannick Bright. He did not look back in that game. His ability to win the ball, his interceptions, I haven't seen the numbers yet, but I can tell you already they're very high. He is the plug in our midfield. But for me, what's standing out the most is his passing ability and his passing with Rodrigo de Paul. The two of them have looked on the same page since the season has started, and that's why our midfield is probably the best part of our team right now, which is not what I would have said at the start of the season.
They are the best part of our team.
Genuinely the best part of our team right now. There was one moment in the second half where Yannick Bright has the ball right behind the halfway line, and I think he's going to go to Noah Allen on the left, and he just reverses the ball straight through 3 DC players into Lionel Messi's feet, and he wouldn't have been able to do this 2 years ago. He maybe would have been able to pull it off last season, but this season, that's his bread and butter. He is finding those through balls. He's finding those incisive passes, whether it's a short pass, whether it's like a slightly long through ball pass. He is keeping it clean. He is keeping it moving. And we talk about Rodrigo de Paul setting the tempo. I think Yannick Bright is just as much a part of that. And his passing has really helped us get out of difficult positions in this season. We can talk about the third element of this if we have an award for him in Segovia, but just the two of them together in the middle, they're going to go far as that midfield duo. I'm worried for David Ajala because he might be a fantastic player, but if Yannick Bright continues to play like this, not happening.
Yeah, I do also feel bad for David Ajala, and I hope David Ajala wins his way into this midfield because that will mean he's an absolute star. I think people expecting that to happen are off base, and you make a great point about him being able to cut through defenders, being able to sort of take a touch past defenders and create space for himself, being able to pick out Messi going forward in the opposition half. Like, these are things that nobody expects of him, and the general Inter Miami fan base, I don't think is caught up to how effectively he's doing this year. He had a really nice switch last game, which is, you were just asking for 20 minutes ago. He had another moment in the 27th minute. I wrote down another tackle that maybe not quite as highlight as the goal-saving one, but also incredibly impressive. But yeah, his actions going forward are way beyond what Inter Miami fans generally think of his play. He's been outstanding in that. He's been very good in that regard. And like the next level is like if he can do this consistently, we're talking about like a fantastic midfielder that you feel really, really comfortable every single time he plays. And you really can't ask for anything else from his game, I don't think.
What a player.
Okay, what is your next award?
My next award is always the Bridesmaid Award.
Okay. Always the bridesmaid, but never the bride. It's the person that's working hard to be the bride, but ends up being the bridesmaid, doesn't have the one moment. So this is obviously a player that's working hard to create offense, but doesn't actually get the goals and assists. This is either Talasco Segovia or Berterame. I'm going to guess Berterame.
I didn't think you'd guess it that easily. And I had a different conversation, which was a little bit more led to this, but you clearly are on a much higher wavelength than I gave you credit for. It is Herman Berterame. But I think this is more of a future-looking conversation for Berterame because always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We brought him in for $15 million as a DP to be the main striker, the forward number 9, the main man in that offense. But my question is, and we may not have an answer to this, is this team ready to have a main man up top? Is Herman Berterame at any point in the season going to be the bride? Or is he just going to be a bridesmaid who will be involved in some way or another, will get goal contributions, will be involved in the offense, but may not be that outlet that we rely on to score the goals? Because there's a genuine chance of that. This team has never truly functioned with an out-and-out number 9. Yes, Luis Suarez, but Luis Suarez is really wily as a striker. He's not your quintessential striker. He will come and play as a number 10. He will get involved. He will bully himself in. And the second part of this conversation is we were deferential to Luis Suarez. We are deferential to Messi just by the stature of these players, the quality of these players, the talent. I don't know if these players around Berterame are deferential to him right now. If there's an option between Berterame and Messi, they're going to find Messi. They're going to give the pass to Messi. But is that how you play with a number 9 striker? Do you want Berterame to be the one finishing your goals, or do you want Messi to be the one finishing your goals? And there's no right answer to this. It's just a thought that I had, and I wanted to use this as a point to... I thought he had a decent performance. I'm not worried about him not scoring a goal in 3 games. I think it will come. He had a really good recovery run, made the first goal happen. I know you have some thoughts on Berterame as well, but maybe he never becomes that main striker.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think you're wrong to at least think this is possible and to sort of project it out, especially if you consider Berterame like a regular player on the team and not the Messi Suarez. Like, I get what you're saying. And so what I'm about to say is not me telling you you're dumb for thinking that.
No, but just let me finish the thought on that. And this is not a knock on Berterame as a player. This is not a knock on his quality. This is not to say that he's not going to be a good player for this Inter Miami team. This is more about the philosophy of this team as a quintessential number 9 up top. Over to you.
I hear what you're saying. I think what you're saying has some real logic to it, and I think like worthy of a conversation. Problem is, can't be the case. You can't spend $15 million on him and him just be a piece that fits in. So, like, I hear what you're saying, but there will never be a point as long as Berterame is on this team with Messi, right? Maybe there's some future where, a couple years Messi retires and Berterame is the star, whatever. But like, as long as he's taking up a DP spot on a Lionel Messi-led team, he has to be a superstar. He has to be.
Exactly.
And so, no, I don't think he can just, and his talent doesn't seem like one that's going to be a superstar from anything but just a huge
Scoring
volume of goals.
Yeah.
I think we've seen some impressive moments from him that are not related to the offense. The work rate is great. His willingness to get back and be a part of the defensive setup, and he's clearly willing to go press really high and create some offense. And we've now seen him twice create offense just by sort of outworking the defender. But it's not going to be good enough until it's in rhythm with Lionel Messi. And so here's what I will say. You and I talked about this after everything last night. When do we start being worried about Berterame? Just spoiler alert, you said 5 games. I said 8 games. We kind of felt we were both kind of right in how we described it. But then I rewatched the game this morning. And I am reading too much into this. But in the 92nd minute, Lionel Messi slips a ball through to Berterame. Berterame gets a shot on. And then it's saved by Sean Johnson. It gets cleared back to Messi. 30 seconds later, he slips another exact same ball to Berterame. And this time, Berterame, a little bit wider angle. He decides to cut it back to Rodrigo de Paul, who's right there in the box. And that's the should have been tap in that Rodrigo de Paul fluffed. That's what it looks like. And for the first 270 minutes of this season, there was none of that. There was no flashes of that. There was no connection. There was no chemistry. There's not even like, it's not even like it was close. It was off and there was no flashes. And that was a flash. And that has bought me in for another 5 to 8 games at least. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to be Messi attracting defenders and then slipping it through to Berterame, and Berterame scoring a ton of goals that way. And now that I've seen just a flash, I feel much better. And during the game yesterday, I was just thinking about Rodrigo de Paul missing the shot and us trying to see out the game and get 3 points. And that moment didn't really stick into my head. But I rewatched it today and it stuck in my head. I feel much better about Berterame right now than I did before I rewatched this game. And I think we lost you. Okay, well, while Saur's trying to get himself...
He's getting better. As I said at the start, he was making those runs and the balls were... Oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. Okay, well, he'll figure that out. And then the other thing about it, we had a long conversation yesterday, 15-minute conversation about Berterame off camera, so I apologize. But one of the things that I did mention is that Berterame's goal output last year at Monterrey, 27 goals, is impressive on the total, but it was actually only about 0.6 goals per 90, which is good, but it's not ridiculous. He played almost 4,000 minutes. And the thing I think we thought about Berterame and why he might explode this season is because he was going to have better service with Lionel Messi getting him the ball. And I do think it's fair to wonder if it's actually going to be that much better if they can't build that type of chemistry. But as I just mentioned, for me to see it even once, just a glimpse of what it could look like, and for Berterame to get a shot on goal, I think is really, really like makes me feel a lot better. And then the other comment that we had about Berterame is that he's only had 4 shots in 3 games, and he's played all 90 minutes of all 3 games. 2 shots yesterday, only 1 or 2 over the first 2 games. They're not getting him involved, and the chemistry has been bad. and maybe I am reading too much into one moment, but it just looked like it's supposed to look for a quick second. While Saur's trying to get back to us, and clearly he's having some technical difficulties, there were a couple questions I wanted to mention or respond to from the chat earlier. Messi Miami 2022 asks, I heard the club purchased an international roster slot, so there has to be someone coming in. There's no one coming in. They had to do that to get roster compliant, and everything has they had to do that just to start the first game, but they don't have anyone coming in, and they don't have any money or room to bring anyone in from an allocation perspective. And then BD says, Allende will start on Wednesday if he's healthy. Who do you think sits, Segovia or Silvetti? I'll ask Saur when he comes back, but I don't think Allende is going to start on Wednesday night. I don't think you're sitting Segovia, who had an assist in this game. I don't think you're sitting Silvetti, who had an assist in this game. And I don't think there's a way Inter Miami can play without, I don't think there's a way Miami can play where you bench someone other than those two. So I appreciate that Allende is a good player, but I'm not sure he's going to start on Wednesday night. Okay. I mean, we're in the wars, and Saur has to give up the next one. So I'm not really sure how we should handle this. So if you guys have any questions in the chat, go ahead. I'll just text Saur and see where he is. Oh, there he is.
Sorry.
I've just been talking about it, Bertarame. So anything else? Any final thoughts?
No. Well, good for you for filibustering for that long. My internet just died on me, but I'm back, and hopefully you can hear me loud and clear. Okay.
Yeah, you're good. Okay. I guess anything else on Bertarame before we go to the next award?
I didn't hear what you said, but I'm sure whatever you said was quite on topic and poignant. So let's go to the next one. I know we've spent a lot of time already.
I will say I had my award for Bertarame in this game was the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And it's just all about tinkering and tailoring, but he was still a soldier. And let's hope he doesn't end up being a spy, because we got that Monterrey game in Leagues Cup. Really
one of my favorite movies.
Okay, my next award is the Remarkable Righty with the Righteous Right Foot award.
The Remarkable Righty with the Righteous Right Foot. Well, let me just go on the team sheet and see which of our players are right-footed, and then which of them have a remarkable right foot. Messi's a lefty, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Telasco Segovia.
This is a callback to 2 years ago when I gave
the remarkable lefty with the righteous lefty.
The sweet lefty with the silky left foot or something like that. Matthias Rojas 2 years ago, callback. The remarkable righty with the righteous right foot goes to
Mateo
Silvetti.
Interesting.
I'm impressed our graphics department got it on the screen.
Good for them.
Impressive.
I can't read it for the life of me, but I hope the viewers can.
That assist is really impressive, and I did not clock how impressive it was the first time when we were watching the game live. You go back and rewatch it. Just a step to the right, and he falls over, but to create the space for himself while Messi's making the run, and then to put the inch-perfect pass in to Messi, who can just chip Sean Johnson for a goal that's, Messi's going to nail time after time. Fantastic. And also, I wanted to give awards to Bright and Bertarame, so this was kind of a consolation award. But fantastic moment from Silvetti. Not sure I love the rest of his game. Just had a couple turnovers too many. Or, there's a moment where Messi tries to push it to him, and he takes a step forward, and the ball is to the wide side of the field, and so it ends up being a turnover. It's just a little bit off, but when we needed it, he delivered the perfect pass, and it was a fantastic pass. And Messi scores what ends up being the game-winning goal. So, and I can't give Messi the remarkable righty with the righteous right foot award, so it goes to Mateo Silvetti.
Honestly, I don't have too many talking points about Silvetti, because the one thing that he did in this game was put Messi through. Fantastic through ball, fantastic assist. But other than that, I thought we didn't find him enough, and he was fairly absent throughout the game. So, if this is the lowest award that you have because I stole one of your awards, then I apologize. But that's all I have for Silvetti. I thought he had a really good moment. And didn't necessarily think he was bad. I just think we didn't use him enough. There were a couple of times then when we passed the ball to him, Segovia tried to get to him, RDP tried to get to him, and it was just either underhit or overhit, or we never found him in the right position where he had space. So I do think he's going to be very important, especially if we play that 4-3-3. And I'd like to see him start against Nashville on Wednesday, even though I think yesterday he started because Allende was not fully fit.
Listen, he got a goal 2 games ago and an assist last game. And the other thing is, even though I don't think he played like fantastic, still had a game-winning moment. And I think that's sort of the thing about him playing on the left wing is I think we get to see the breakout superstar that we were thinking about all offseason and we were sort of getting glimpses of in the playoffs last year. If you make him play as a wide midfielder in a flat four, you're not gonna get the breakout superstar that I think we think he is capable of being. You put him on the left, and I think we will get, like, he will be one of the great teenagers in MLS, if not the number one. Although I will say there's a kid for RSL, Xavier Gozo, who had a fantastic goal last night. Also, just MLS related, there was a goal in the Minnesota United Nashville game. This Minnesota player, best goal of the season, picks the ball up at halfway, dribbles twice, and shoots from like 40 yards. And it's just a banger into the top left corner. Anyways, not important.
Silvetti's better than all of them. So,
well, that I don't think was a teenager, but yeah. Okay, go ahead. What's your last award?
my last award, and as yours, this is the bottom of the barrel award. So take it with a pinch of salt. But my award is a salve that softens, and salve as in SALVE. Like a soothing gel.
Okay. This is Mikhail because he makes you feel a lot better about the rugged work that has to go on in the back.
You're on fire today, mate. So. A salve that softens. I think he's the best part about that defense, which has been very leaky and almost like a wound, which continues to bleed. But with Mikhail in the back line, I think that wound has slightly shut itself up. We've applied a bit of Vaseline on it, and it looks good. I thought yesterday was one of his best performances in an Inter Miami shirt. I was a little worried after that LAFC game, where I thought he struggled with that high line, but he's coming into his own. I enjoyed his performance against Orlando, even though we conceded 2 goals. And yesterday, honestly, we should have kept a clean sheet against this DC United team. He won his headers. He was very dominant, controlling the box, did not let Ty Baribo get a sniff in front of goal. And overall, I thought he had a very solid performance, better than Falcone. And yeah, I think if we get better as a defensive unit, it's going to be him absolutely dominating the backline.
Yeah, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, rewatched the game, and I did feel half a point better about both he and Maxi Falcone. So I thought he was pretty good. Like, I do think we're going to have real impact games from him where he has that huge save, or, the big defensive moments where, Yannick Bright last night, and we've seen Maxi Falcone have goal line saves. I think Mikhail will have those. And he'll also, I think, have like an assist or 2 this year. Like, he'll have games that he's a huge difference maker. But just moment to moment, I also thought he was pretty good last night. Better than I thought when I watched it the first time.
And maybe this is the first award we've given him. So welcome to the Drive Ping Dialogue Award show, Mikhail.
Yes, I have a behind-the-scenes comment, but I will save it for after the show. I won't tease it. Our graphics department put together the graphic of his face, and I did not ask them to do the tattoos, and the tattoos look fantastic on our little graphic, and that means nothing to anyone except for me. And I appreciate the fine detail, and I want to shout out the graphics department. That's all I got, man. Anything else on anyone else? Messi I thought he had a little bit of a down game. Gets a goal. I also thought he was better on the rewatch, but by his standards, it was, not as impressive as I think we've seen already this season, but that's fine. Anyone else you want to talk about?
Player-wise, not really. I had an award for Telasco Segovia, but I think the conversation was more about the 4-3-3 and how that fits him perfectly. I think he's been really good this season. Had one bad moment, but other than that, I thought he was fine. Didn't actually give the ball away as much as I thought he had. Um, I do think overall this game, it's interesting because the first three games have gone this way. The first game, I think overall the team was quite bad. Second game, offensively very good, defensively very poor. Third game, defensively very good, well, decent. Midfield looked decent, offensively slightly poor. So the obvious conclusion is that against Nashville on Wednesday, everything's just going to fit together. That's the only other option left. I think it's coming together. The progress is there. We're going incrementally upwards. And if we didn't have that game against Nashville, this would have been a really good win. And we might not have spent an hour and 20 minutes talking about it. But we have one eye on Nashville. And I hope this team is ready for that game. It's going to be a lot more intense. And hopefully they brush off the cobwebs after this.
Okay, well, you were gone. I brought up a comment from BD in the chat that he thinks Allende is going to start on Wednesday night. Let's move forward to Nashville. Quickly, are you feeling good, confident? How are you feeling about the game? And also, what do you think the 11 will be?
I'm nervous. I think Nashville looks very good. They scored 7 goals. I think they've only conceded 2. They haven't changed much. They've added Espinoza up front. They've lost Schaffelberg, but that's a big upgrade. Their midfield is still the same. Their playing structure, I'll probably do some digging to understand how they play. I don't think they become particularly ball dominant. Inter Miami has their number. Okay, well, that's interesting.
They are in your face.
Okay. So, but are they more possession based than they were last season? That's my question.
Here's what I'll say. They have been. The level of competition, I think, it's fair to wonder if that has been part of it. They've played 5 games so far this year, 2 against the Canadian Premier League team, which they're obviously much better than. The MLS games have been New England, which they are much better than. Minnesota, which we know is a defense first team. They were smothering Minnesota last night. And they played Dallas to a 0-0 draw, and they got a red card in that game, so I'm not sure. But they are in your face, and it is hard to play through them. Yazbek has been really good for them this year. He's a guy that we were kind of not thinking much of. Is just kind of a runaround sort of butterfly last year. Butterfly's the wrong word. Pest last year. But he's been much better this season. Christian Espinoza, Hani Mukhtar, and Sam Surridge have had no trouble getting on the same page, unlike our new big attacking option. So they are very good going forward. And if you let them put you under pressure, they are going to break through. But we'll see what their game plan is because they're at home and they're riding high on confidence. But, man, I think it might only take one Lionel Messi dribble through or Rodrigo de Paul dribble through and he slips Messi in and you get a goal. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe we've stepped into a different tier of opposition than what we've been dealing with so far. So I think anyone that watches them and is nervous about this is right to be nervous. That doesn't mean they're unbeatable. I don't think their defense has been particularly tested. They have a new goalkeeper that has not been threatened a ton. So it doesn't mean Inter Miami can't just completely handle them. But they look pretty good. They look pretty good right now. I have to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm nervous. And at this point, I'll just take a draw happily on Wednesday. I think that's going to be massive.
You can't. You have to go for the win because it sets you up for future rounds.
Yeah, but
I know it's tough. It's tough, man.
I know.
It's tough.
So we'll see. I expect Inter Miami to win. So
okay,
that's all I'm going to leave it at. Same as last game.
Me too.
Maybe Ian Frey in right back. That's going to be my change, but the same as last game.
Is that your change or is it what you think will happen?
No, it's my change. What's going to happen is I think they're going to stick with the same starting 11 with Allende instead of Silva. Oh. I think we're going to go to a 4-4-2 with Allende starting over Silvetti.
I think it's going to be the same we saw yesterday afternoon, is my guess. But I think what you're saying, I could see it being a reversion from Javier Mascherano. And listen, get the result. No one will complain. We did, we were nitpicking things in this game, even though they won, but that is a different animal. You go win that game and we're all smiles. And so
Biggest
I don't
game
know.
of
It's
the
just going to
season,
be
baby.
nervous. It's just going to be nervous and fun. And again, they have
Not
to
fun.
win.
It's not going to be fun unless Inter Miami scores 2 goals in the first 30 minutes, and then we're going to be like, oh, this is great.
I think the environment is going to be really good.
So good.
I'm excited for the game. Maybe I'm going to talk myself into being more
We're going to
nervous if we
play
keep...
Nashville at least 4 times this year.
Well, of course.
I'm not
Never a doubt.
excited for that at all. I'm going to be so sick and tired of Nashville by the end of the season. Again, as last season.
I remember as soon as we won the game 3 of the first round, I was like, thank God we don't have to see Nashville. And then the schedule came out, and we didn't have Nashville in the MLS until the second half of the season. And I tweeted out, thank God. And then like 4 people comment, they might get them in the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
And lo and behold, yep.
Nah, come on. What are the odds? First game. And Nashville looks pretty good under BJ. Okay, let's end it there. Saur, any final thoughts?
Got the 3 points on the road onwards to the most important game of Inter Miami season on Wednesday. Bring on Nashville.
I can't believe we just did an hour and a half on the DC United game. That's crazy. Okay, guys, we will see you pregame show Wednesday, 1 hour, 45 minutes before kickoff, something like that. Hope you guys have a lovely time. Until then, we'll see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful